It's time for Two Guys and a Goalie with Dustin Nielsen, Matt Cassian, and the goalie, Joaquin Gate.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to a episode of Two Guys and a Goalie for the first time ever, featuring just two guys. One of them a goalie. Nielsen and Gager with you. Cass is off on a trip right now, so he's unable to join us. I think Tommy's working down in Coeur d'Alene. And look, it's an off-season episode anyway, Gager. It's not like we've got a ton to get to. Well, actually, when you look at our lineup, we do have quite a bit to get to today, don't we?
This is a lot for two guys.
Yeah,
and a goalie, but I guess it's one guy and a goalie. So
this is as close as we've gotten to as our much talked about one-on-one showdown. Me on 10 breakaways against you between the pipes, which does still have to happen because I think I could score at least one goal, but we'll see. We get Cool Bet to set some odds on that, actually.
Yeah.
Hey?
That's gonna be a huge gathering, some winter festival kind of thing where
Rogers Place. Yeah, out.
It's got to be there. Yeah. It's got to be there. At least 20,000. At least 20,000.
Standing room only. Standing room only. Cool Bet sets the odds if I can score one goal on Gager on 10 breakaway attempts. And just so you know, speed is not one of my keys on a breakaway, so we'll see how it plays out. But yeah, so here we go. We got almost a showdown here. Lots of things to discuss, though. Two Guys and a Goalie brought to you by our great partners at CoolBet. If you've not yet signed up for an account at CoolBet, what are you doing? Hop online there at coolbet.com and use the code 2GUYS when you do sign up. If you are watching on the live stream and you want to ask a question, feel free to fire them over. I'll keep tabs on that. Got my iPad set up to the left here, so if you are watching, fire some questions. We'll get to some of those. But lots to discuss. Let's start with the Oilers bringing in another bottom six piece, Gager. Matthias Janmark, a one-year deal, $1.25 million. I mentioned it on my show earlier today that when he scored, I think he opened up his career with like 15 goals as a rookie, 19 in his second year, and you're like, hey. Okay, like I always thought he was like a good sleeper pick in hockey pools back then because I was like, in fact, I'm pretty sure I bet money against buddies at drafts being like, this is the year, Janmark's getting 25, and it never panned out for me. Hopefully it pans out for the Oilers, but what are your thoughts on bringing in a guy with his level of experience to play in the bottom six here?
I like it, Dusty. I know the offensive production was thought to be a lot more than what it actually was. What was it last year? 9 goals, 25 points. So
yeah.
I mean, I look at it this way. If there are some injuries in your top six, always nice to have a guy that can possibly move up and have a little bit of production because he's done some of that in the past and not relying on maybe one of the younger guys to fit the bill that way. So just another reliable, experienced player, and that can move up and down your lineup if needed. But let's not go crazy here and think that this guy's going to score 20. He's going to be in that bottom six where just have that reliable, steady player.
Yeah, it's an interesting signing. I'm beyond my fetish with him 4 years ago of thinking he might be able to blow up a little bit offensively in Dallas. For what he brings to this bottom six, I find it a little bit different than everybody else. First of all, straight up insurance policy if Holloway's not ready. Like if Holloway looks a little bit over his head at the beginning of next season, you can still just roll Foegele and Janmark in your two left wing spots in your bottom two lines, and that's nice. Like that's two guys with experience who are National Hockey League players. It's not knee guard or somebody from overseas, right? This is a guy who can play in the National Hockey League. He has played in the National Hockey League. I also look at him, I don't want it to come across as like a slight, but like cookie cutter bottom six guy. Like if you need him to play a little power play too, he can give you a little power play too. Not great at it. If you need him to penalty kill, he might not be the best at it, but he can penalty kill a little bit for you. He's got decent size, but he's not overly physical. He's not going to be going out crashing and banging. If you need him to take the odd face-off here or there, he can take the odd face-off here or there, but he's not technically a center. He's a left winger. So he can and you mentioned it, like if you look at the top six and how it's constructed, or the bottom six and how it's constructed right now, depending on what happens with Holloway, you've got McLeod who you could slide up there if somebody gets hurt in the top six, or if somebody on your wing gets hurt. Janmark's played with some skilled guys in the past, so it's like he's like a utility knife just not a great utility knife, just an okay utility knife, which is what you should expect for $1.25 million.
Yeah, he's not a Leatherman. He's a Swiss Army, right? So, yeah. But the one thing I think that maybe they looked at too, Dusty, is he does have a lot of playoff experience and has put up some points in the playoffs too, right? So, by all accounts, the Oilers are a playoff team, and just to have another guy that's gone through it and gone all the way, like, that can only help your lineup in just having that type of experience.
So that's one thing that obviously has happened with the Edmonton Oilers, and we'll see how their bottom six sort of sorts itself out right now. There's a few things that will certainly have to be broken down. You've got guys who can play center, can play the wing, the Derek Ryans, the Shores, and those types of guys. And now Janmark comes in and probably provides a little bit more offensive upside than a lot of those other pieces. One guy who's probably going to be in the top six, one guy who may not be here at all. I still think Puljujarvi on the third line, if you can make it work with McLeod and Holloway or whoever, could end, and Janmark even. I mean, it could be a little decent third line. But they both filed for arbitration, Gager, both eligible to still obviously sign before getting to arbitration. I think arbitration cases start July 27th or 8th. Not sure when those dates are laid out here right now. But I think both these guys come away from arbitration with like $3 million if that's what it gets to, and means they wouldn't have room for both of them. But where do you come out on these two guys both electing arbitration? And it's interesting because JP and the Oilers have obviously batted heads in the past, and Yamamoto's negotiations weren't smooth last year either. So I'm very interested to see how far this gets. Like, do they actually sit down on the table and say everything they don't like about both of these players?
Yeah, it's they've both been kind of stubborn in their negotiations in the past, right? So I completely understand going to arbitration. It's their right and stuff, but it's weird because if they both get what we kind of predict what they should get, the Oilers won't have room for one of them. You know, it's such a weird situation with how the cap is and these two players. And I in a perfect world, I think the Oilers are better with both of them in the lineup. Like, they're both bona fide NHL players. It's just, gosh, I don't know which way this is going to go, Dusty. Like, we've just heard rumblings of JP on the way out and stuff, and I know that that you're not a huge fan of that, and to tell you the truth, I'm not either. But I think there's a ceiling with him that's higher up than Yamamoto. There's both really good players, but I think there's more there with Puljujarvi, and we'll probably see that if he's moved somewhere else.
Yeah, I think with the way the team's constructed right now, they'd really like to have both of these guys back. Like, well, as of right now, like, Hyman's playing right side for you, and I like Hyman a little bit more on the left. People seem to think that he likes playing on the left a little bit more, but with the way this team's lined up right now, if Puljujarvi's not back and you have Yamamoto, Hyman essentially has to play right side, because who else are you going to play on the right side in your top six?
I just, the one thing you said before with Holloway, I hope that he starts in the minors this year. I just don't think it's to have him come in and try to perform just with what's happened with injuries and the lack of professional games played. I don't want to see him here at the start of the year, Dusty. I want to see him go to the minors and get some more confidence, start dominating down there a little bit more before you see him in an Oilers jersey.
Something to certainly watch. I'm fascinated to see, like, do they get a longer-term deal done for Yamamoto and then move Puljujarvi before it gets arbitration and another team can sign him? I don't even know if that's how that works as far as being moved while you're in the middle of this arbitration process, but something to keep tabs on as well. The other discussion that popped up on my show this morning, Gager, and, I think there's some sort of level of overall team toughness that you need, but when you look at the Oilers lineup right now, with the way it's constructed, and I mean, maybe there's one more ad, and maybe it's a guy who can drop the mitts a little bit, but like, where do you come out on the toughness level with this team right now? Like, are they without Cassian, and they've only lost Cassian that would be described as a guy who brings that sandpaper to this group. Sorry about everybody else, but I mean, that's it. So do you see them as a team that is desperate for toughness or grit right now?
Well, the Cassian thing, if he was sandpaper, it was really that fine grade, right? That it wasn't
And it
that
was a
big coarse
sandpaper that had
stuff.
been rubbed so hard that there was just a little bit of sandpaper left on it, right? Like,
Yeah, you're using a little corner. It wasn't really there, Dusty, and I think, gosh, toughness has changed so much over the years. I look at it as there's obviously intimidation that's done throughout the game and physical play. I don't think you got that with Cassian anymore. They have now with Evander Kane, one of a great physical player that has that type of play that everyone's aware of when you're on the ice, right? Oh, Evander's out there. We got to make sure you're not getting hit by this guy. He's good after whistles with talking to people. Not many guys are going to want to drop their gloves with Evander Kane, right? But
which is almost all you need nowadays, Gager. Right? It's the perception of I'll get you, as opposed to actually like I'm going to drop my gloves and come running and get you. It's different now, I think.
Yeah, that's what the NHL is. The other aspect of kind of is that ratty kind of aspect of getting under the other team's skin, and I don't think the Oilers really have a player kind of like that. Numalainen, I do like, and I hope he takes another step to come into the Oilers lineup, because he's a guy that he's like Darius Kasparaitis, right? Like, just you have to be aware of this guy or he's going to put you on your butt. So I'd like to see a little bit of that toughness more on the back end and on the D side. That's the area where I think the Oilers have to get a little bit more physical is on the back end, and having a few guys that are really uncomfortable to play against, so to say.
Make things harder when they're playing in your zone. And a guy like Niemelainen, if he's going to come in and win a job, he's going to do that better than Slater Cuckoo is going to do that. You know what I mean? Like,
and yeah.
There's a role for him to win a job.
Yeah. That's the only thing, because Duncan Keith, he was vicious with that stick, right? He's a surgeon with that, hitting players in places that there's no protection and stuff. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see, but there needs to be a little bit more, I think, on that side.
All right, that's it for the Oilers. Obviously, we'll get to some more Oilers talk in the next episode of Two Guys and a Goalie, but a few other things to hit on around the National Hockey League, and we'll get to Nazem Kadri in a second. Let's talk about Johnny Gaudreau first, getting a huge offer from the Calgary Flames, and then saying no, and saying, it's not about the money, and then not ending up in Philly or New Jersey, where a lot of people think he might end up. He ends up with the Columbus Blue Jackets. So let's first start with this on the Calgary Flames side of things. Gager, you sit here, you lay it all out. I heard that I heard basically Johnny Gaudreau's camp says we'd like these things, and the Flames said yes, we can do these things. And then Johnny Gaudreau's camp said, we're still leaving. And then there was a phone call or two made to Johnny Gaudreau that weren't very pleasant from the Calgary Flames, and that might have been the end of it entirely. But if you're the Flames, you're sitting here, what else are you supposed to do, Gage? You're like, that's a tough spot to be in.
Well, yeah, it's tough. Looking at all that kind of venom towards Johnny Gaudreau, I don't think it's warranted, to tell you the truth, Dusty. I watch. There's a Dave Chappelle, the comedian, right? Like I've watched his specials on it. It's weird because I kind of match the two together in a weird sense, both going to Ohio, which is funny. But anyway, Dave Chappelle talks about how when he was on the Chappelle show and it was going great, his show was the top show in the world, and they offer him all this money, and he says he knew if he were to take this money, he would have been asked to do certain things that he just wasn't ready to do. Like he says it in his specials, name your price. And I think a lot of that comes to Johnny Gaudreau with the amount. I think he threw a number at the Flames, and it came back. They said yeah, and that was like, oh my God, they said yes. He thought that wasn't going to work at all. And I just think that for him, and he's been in that market, and he's done unbelievable. Not the playoff success that they wanted, obviously, but he's been a solid, reliable 80-point goal scorer for the Flames over the past 7-8 years or whatever it may be. And I just think that the amount of money that they were going to pay him wasn't worth maybe the games where he doesn't have a point, because he would have heard every time that he didn't win the game or do something that number
they
would
gave
come
you
up.
Everything that you wanted,
and it just was not worth it. It's hard to play in hockey ravaged fan cities, and he would have heard it filling up his car or plugging it in or whatever he's got. But I just think that at the end of the day, $10 million playing in Calgary, and not maybe if he had an off game, which he would have had, wasn't worth it to him, his family, anything like that. He's going to a place that's a good hockey city. He's being paid less, but just kind of possibly blending in a little bit more. And I respect him for that. It's
interesting when you say, "What's your number?" and they go, "Let's just give a crazy number," and then that's it. And they go, "Yep."
Yeah.
It's
like
wild.
I said 9 million, 10 million.
Yeah.
Whoa, what?
Yeah.
What?
I remember, like, I haven't gone after many jobs last little while, but a few years ago I had an opportunity and I went and I toured around and sit down with them. They're like, "Well, we'd like you to move here." And I was just like, "Oh, okay." And they're like, "Tell us your number." So I said, "Well, you know what? I'm going to talk to my wife and stuff." So I came up with like an exorbitant number for me in my mind. I was just like, "Here it is." And they're like, "Yeah, we can make that work." I was like, "No, you're not supposed to make it work. Like, I technically don't really want to leave where I'm at." So I ended up having to be like, "Sorry, I'm going to stay where I am right now." So it was bizarre. So, I mean, I think sometimes your mind is just set on one thing and you say, "Oh, it's going to be this crazy, crazy ask and they're never going to give me that." And then you go and you take less money somewhere else where you're going to be happy, right? And that's, he's going to be able to fly under the radar a little bit in Columbus for sure. This is the interesting question for me, Gager, is, what is Columbus with Johnny Gaudreau? Like, what does Columbus think they just did as a franchise, as a team right now, by bringing in Johnny Gaudreau? Because I still look at the Blue Jackets and I go, a little bit better, but still not a team that's going to worry me if I'm in their division or in their conference. Do you see that differently, or is this a step towards putting yourself in a spot to bring in other guys like this?
I think if you look at it, and if you're just looking at strictly a blueprint, Elvis is I think a really good goalie. Off year last year, but I think there's something there on the goaltending side. Werenski, I believe his name, he's a fabulous defender. Like, he's one of the top 10 defensemen in the league. And now you would have to say, if you look at a duo of Patrick Laine and Johnny Gaudreau, you'd have GMs salivating over something like that. That's going to be unbelievable. So I think there's something there to entice other players to come, possibly to play there with how they're set up. So I think it's a good move. Everyone, the building blocks, when I kind of look at their roster, there's work to do. But getting a guy there, he's going to be there for a while. Obviously, it depends on what's going to happen with Laine here, because he's restricted. But I like the building blocks that the Columbus Blue Jackets have. And man, you don't want to be taking penalties against them with Gaudreau and Laine and Werenski back there. That's a potent power play.
I don't mind their forward group, and I like Werenski. The rest of their blue line really concerns me. But I mean, if you secure Johnny Gaudreau, he's not going anywhere for a long time here, Gage. You're right. It's a piece that you can continue to build on. And I know some people instantly thought, well, that's the end of Laine, but they said they still are hopeful that they can get Laine done on a deal as well. And he is an RFA. Let's tie it in Laine. Winnipeg Jets, Gage. You got Pierre-Luc Dubois' agent come out and saying that he wants to play for Montreal at some point, and he can eventually get there if he accepts his qualifying offer. Eventually gets to be a UFA and he goes. You're Winnipeg. You've got Blake Wheeler, who doesn't want to be there anymore. You got Mark Scheifele, who's by many people identified as the main problem in the dressing room. You've got Pierre-Luc Dubois, who you gave up Patrick Laine to get your hands on, and now Dubois is saying, "Hey, I'm going to be in Montreal at some point. That's where I really want to play." What do you do if you're running the Winnipeg Jets? Like, how do you sort this out? How do you get the Jets back on track to where we all thought they were like 12 months ago?
Got it. What a fall from grace here, Dusty. I mean, I was I was pumped on the Jets to come out of the West. I think this and seeing the exodus of all these players and not wanting to be there anymore. It's something's off there. I mean, to have Paul Maurice leave and say there's nothing more I can do with this team, and it just seemed to fall apart when the big buff left. It just crumbled from there, and it seemed like the thing that's most puzzling to me, because I love Blake Wheeler. I think he's a phenomenal player, and Scheifele, and they just look like they were a galvanized team and tight knit, always saying the right things. And now to see it just kind of fall apart. I think I caught your show, and I mean, if you really want to rebuild, man, you got some great pieces to.
You do.
And this is the Chev Doggers got to make a decision, I think, really quick here and start wheeling and dealing, because the draft next year is going to be really good by all accounts. There's going to be a lot of probably franchise changing players coming up, or great pieces to franchises. So, and the returns that you could get with some of these players, especially with Hellebuck in net, would definitely make you maybe limit the fans' disappointment, say, because look, I was thinking we would see the Jets in the final in the past few years here, definitely.
Yeah, I just don't know what you do. I think you laid out a few pretty good points there. I just can't believe it's got to this point with the Winnipeg Jets. Like the Winnipeg in free agency, they sit around, they do nothing. Like nothing against Big Save Dave, but like they do nothing in free agency. I thought the Jets. I remember the Hockey News had a cover like in 2018 that said "Your 2022 Stanley Cup champion, Winnipeg Jets." Like it was all coming together, and it's just completely fallen apart. So that's tough to see for them. Let's wrap up this episode of Two Guys and a Goalie with Nazem Kadri. Sitting here, still has not signed. Gager was one of, we thought, the most sought-after free agents. Problem is, a lot of money gets spent in the early few days of free agency, and if you miss out on a chair, maybe all of a sudden you have to go to a plan B, both from a team perspective and a player perspective, and maybe that's what Kadri's thinking right now. If you look at a lot of the teams that still have cap space, I don't know if I'd like him to go, be a part of that for 6-7 years to wrap up my career. Maybe Colorado finds room to sort of sneak him in. I don't think Kadri will want to take a pay cut. This is his chance to cash in on a career year right now. How weird do you think this situation is for Kadri right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think his whole process was cashing in this year with the year he had and winning a cup, being an all-star, all the stars aligning, right? But now it's, gosh, yeah, do I cash in and struggle for the next 8 to 9 years on a team that's not going to be competitive? I think it's I don't know, maybe he's missed the boat with and waited too long with some of these free agent signings, and because of this cap era, there's only a limited amount of teams that he can go to. I do kind of look to the Flames to be replaced. He's not like Gaudreau though, but then you want to see what's going to happen with Tkachuk there too, right? So, and I think he's put himself back into a hole a little bit. I'm sure he wants to win more than anything else, but at what cost does this actually happen? Is the main question. It'll be. I would have thought he'd be somewhere by now, Dustin.
Yeah.
I thought would
maybe
be done,
at worst
sure.
it'd be day 2. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but for it to go this long, I'd like to see what that number is and what he's actually looking for.
Let's wrap up with this, because you mentioned a guy in there that I don't think a lot of people are talking about it just yet, but if you're Tkachuk right now, and you just watched Johnny Gaudreau, who was with the Flames for like a decade and coming off a career year, and the organization offers you all the money in the world, like as much as anybody would be willing to offer you, and you're still like, see you later. If you're Tkachuk and you're sitting there, Gager, are you not thinking, wait a second here? Like, Johnny Gaudreau had a chance to stay here with a team that's pretty good this year, and he left. Why would I commit to be here long-term either? Like, does that not really throw a wrench into the Tkachuk contract, don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's missing out his centerman now that he would, if Gaudreau signs back, he's scoring another 100 points, right? So what's going to happen here with him? The whole everything has just been thrown completely out of whack in Calgary. Like they could lose. If that's a sad town right now. Good thing they had Stampede to lessen the blow. I imagine like if the liquor sales would have gone off the rails if Tkachuk said no and looking for someone else down there in Calgary. That would have been an awful thing to happen. But man, that's I think they're kind of deflecting a little bit, and they're saying, "Oh, Edmonton's going to be in the same situation in a few years or whatever." But we're not now. But it's crazy. I hope he stays just because the Battle of Alberta. I know we only get 3 games this year, but he makes it way more enjoyable. He reestablished that whole thing. He brings lots to that Calgary team. That's just too big a hole to. There's no other players like that. The only guys that I can kind of compare him to is Kane, right? And there should be some money left over.
And his brother a little bit too. Like his brother could be a dick too, right? So, Sean says Tkachuk could look at it as he's the guy now, and there's no one else in front of him. Like he's the big man on campus with Calgary, and he could also be the big man on campus somewhere else if he manages it properly too. So that's a dangerous spot to be in for the Calgary Flames right now. And Tkachuk's price just went up a little bit for sure because they got a lot of money to spend, and who knows, maybe they dive into Kadri at some point as well. All right, that's going to do it for another episode of Two Guys and a Goalie, brought to you by Coolbet. Gager, we haven't pointed out yet, but that is a sick off-season. And what off-season Nielsen show shirt, buddy. Look at that.
I think I got into the studio, into the old grab bag, and just rummaged one of those. Through.
That's great.
Like I said, when I wear this out, it gets a lot of looks. So it's like, oh, wait a second.
I can't wait to see you wear it on Sportsnet next year. That'd be great.
yeah, perfect.
Wear it underneath a suit like Spider or like Superman, and then just
right. Yeah,
full-blown Clark Kent, that thing. That'd be great. All right, that's going to do it for another episode of Two Guys and a Goalie. And I'm not sure if we'll have Cass back on Thursday or not, but we'll obviously keep coming along with NHL news here in the off-season. It's all brought to you by our wonderful partners at Coolbet. If you're not yet signed up for an account at Coolbet, you can today. Stay cool, bet responsibly with Coolbet at coolbet.com. Use the code 2GUYS, the number 2 in the word guys, when you sign up. Gager, enjoy the rest of your Monday, buddy.
All right, buddy. Take care.